Is it going to be absolute, or could maybe monsters overtake that for the top spot, or will it be something else that's completely different? Let's check out the Cover Price Top 10 list coming up next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hello, panelologists. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. Before we get started, like, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell so you get the latest videos. Check out the description for links to my eBay store, my email, my whatnot, and my Instagram. So we're going to cover the weekly Cover Price Top 10 list. Cover Price is a comic book pricing service, and they accumulate data from different sales platforms for both graded as well as raw comic books. And they also put out several articles and lists, including this top 10 list of the books that moved most in the aftermarket in the last week. So we're going to count down the top 10, and we're going to take a quick look at 11 through 20. So let's start that process right now. So coming in at number 10 is West Coast Avengers #1, the variant edition by Todd Knock. This book is, I think it's just a cover B. I don't think it's a ratio. It's not a ratio variant. And it's going for, what, about 20, 25 bucks for a book that came out today. This is, it hits the stands one day. A surprise cover is already trending. Blue Bolt is the latest hero debut in the Marvel comic universe. This book will mark his first appearance, and thanks to Todd Knock's 1 per store variant. It is a variant, 1 per store. His first cover appearance. Blue Bolt is an interesting character described as a villain seeking to redeem himself through a new prison release program. He's also being marketed as the biggest jerk in the Marvel universe, which are big shoes to fill. Will Blue Bolt live up to the hype? So far, he's tearing up the aftermarket with pre-release sales. What about the original Blue Bolt comic books from the 1940s? Well, the original Blue Bolt's first appearance, who is in the public domain, so Marvel can use the name. Will that trend? Probably not. Let's go to number 9 on the list. And it's Mark Spears Monsters #1. This is the second print Trick or Treat Mole error. All right. It's going for $30, maybe even over $40. But this did come out a couple of months ago. Who doesn't love a good error print? This one might be a hard one to spot, so make sure you take a close look at your second print copy for this issue. For those lucky enough to get a copy of this issue, you would know by looking at the exposed shoulder of the woman facing the monsters in the doorway. An error print on the cover appears as the woman has a mole on her upper arm or shoulder. I will be honest with you, I don't care. This is one of those, like, who knows how rare it is and who knows who cares. And really, a shoulder mole on an incidental character? Yeah, I don't care. I'm going to move on to number 8. Here we have Batman, The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, #0, the prologue. This is trending. It's going, maybe up to $15 or $20. Let's look at 9/8 sales of this book. Nothing really to write home about. 12 universal graded copies, all 9/8. And recent sales have been between $48 and $75. Not an expensive book, but I think people just want to get into the story of this. The Long Halloween is a classic Batman storyline and has stood the test of time. This 1996 storyline is a seminal part of Batman history, along with its successor, Batman Dark Victory. This trilogy's strong story started its final act in this book, which reprints The Long Halloween Special #1 from 2021. If you missed the start of The Last Halloween, you can easily grab issues #1 and 2 online. This special Batman Day edition might be harder to grab as fans are scooping them up as fast as they hit the aftermarket. If you're all caught up, make sure you grab The Last Halloween #3, available in stores tomorrow or today, because this was written yesterday or today, Tuesday, and this video is dropping on Wednesday. So, yeah, you can still catch it. I think people are just trying to get in and read this book. Let's go to number 7 on the list. And here we go. Absolute Batman #1, the Nick Dragotta Noir Foil Edition. High-grade copies for 20, maybe even up to $30 and 9.8. That's early yet. I'm not really going to worry about 9.8s of a book that came out 2 weeks ago. While Absolute Batman #1 cover A remains hot on the list, other variants tend to climb to the top spot. This week, we have a newly released edition of Nick Dragotta's Noir Foil Edition. While it was only just released, this book is already a hot grab for those who missed out on the other initial variants released for this book. If you're a completionist, you might want to grab this one before it continues to heat up. We track 10 copies sold, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, Absolute Batman is hot #1. Brand new book. If you can get it for a good price, maybe. It seems as though the book is still the cover A. Let's go to #6 on the list. And this is a drop from #1 last week. It's Forbidden Planet #1 from Innovation in 1992. And sales are kind of skyrocketing, upwards of $60 for a high grade raw. And let's take a look at the 9/8 sales. This is from last week. There were only 5 9/8s on the census. There's another book popped up the census, but not a 9/8. And the most recent sale is still $105, about almost 2 weeks ago. This property has been updated, and what we have is widely considered a classic. It's a sci-fi film from 1956 and one of the generation's most influential outer space films. Last week, Warner Brothers announced that the movie will receive the Hollywood remake treatment, sort of like The Day the Earth Stood Still. While most fans cringe at the sound of a reboot of a classic film, there is some good news. Eisner Award-winning comic book creator and fan favorite Brian K. Vaughan will be penning the script. Vaughan has a strong reputation with fans as being a gifted storyteller. This news built up a hype for the reboot as collectors ran to the aftermarket to secure a copy of the film's adaptation first issue before prices soared. 4-issue miniseries. I think people kind of might be interested in getting the complete miniseries and reading it. It's a pretty cool cover with Robbie the Robot on there. We'll see what comes of a potential movie reboot. Let's go to #5 on the list. And this is Mark Spears' Monsters #2. This is the cover B, the Spawn #1 homage with Dracula. And it even says Spears after McFarlane. High-grade copies going for $15 to $20. I did pick up an issue #2, but be honest, I picked up this cover C with the creature in the Black Lagoon. To me, that was the book to get. But regardless, this title is hitting hard. One of the most recurring and top-selling #1 covers is Spawn. This cover is a classic that newcomers and veterans of the comic collecting hobby quickly recognize. The second cover of issue #2 pays a perfect homage to Spawn by placing big bad Dracula front and center. The second issue of the series was already trending upward, but this homage cover brings it to another level. Currently, cover A is trending better than the homage cover, but we'll see if next week brings the same news. Again, keep an eye out for cover C, my opinion. That's the one I bought. I think people are catching on to this series, so the subsequent issues are going to be easier to find. They're probably more heavily pre-ordered than issue #1 because of the word of mouth this has been getting. Let's go to #4 on the list, and it is Absolute Batman #1, cover A by Nick Dragotta. Near mint copies, still in the $30 or so range. Let's take a look at the 9.8s. If I refresh, we went from 46 9.8s last week, or 46 graded copies last week, to 128 this week. Almost triple the number of copies. 96% of them are 9.8s. And we see the sales are pretty solid all around $100. There was a high of 130 and 120. So this is solidly a $100 9.8. And at this point in time, the supply is starting to catch up to the demand. Batman is still a feared figure atop our top 10 list. Absolute Batman has been dominating our list for nearly 2 months. Will fans ever get enough of this absolute universe? According to the massive 146 copies sold this past week, it doesn't look like it. Cover A is still burning up the aftermarket. I'm surprised that this Superman, which I thought was a really good read, Absolute Superman #1, has not hit harder on these lists. Speaking of Absolute, let's go to #3. It's All In Special #1. It's a wraparound cover, and it's the first appearance of the Absolute Universe. Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman. High of $15, 9.8s. And this is interesting. If we look at the 9.8 sales, they're all in the $70, $80 range. And it looks to me, from these photos, it's all the same seller. Right? And we even look, this is weird. It's They sold it. Wow. I don't really want to spend the time to investigate this, but it's the same cert number that sold one day and then the next and then one day and then 4 days later. That's really bizarre. Whatever. I think it's the first appearance of these characters is driving this. Absolute Batman and Absolute Wonder Woman have arguably been one of the most trending books of 2020, or two of the most trending books of 2024. The introduction to the Absolute Universe was a huge win for DC. As successful as the books were in shops, the aftermarket took the books to the next level. As fans continue to enjoy the Absolute Universe, many are backtracking and looking for the true first appearances of these new characters. It looks like this past week brought a new contender for the Absolute Universe trend as fans went all in on this issue. This special issue is the first appearance of the new Absolute versions of Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman. It also introduces the Absolute Universe as a whole. So that's kind of an interesting to keep an eye on. I think it was kind of flew under the radar several months ago. Let's go to number 2, and it's Mark Spears' Monsters number 2. This is the cover A Mark Spears Guess Who's Back issue. And you can see there are a lot of variants. This is, I mean, you have an ASM 601 homage, a Batman 423 homage, another Bridezilla, a EC homage, a Dark Shadows homage, a holofoil flip cover, all sorts of fun stuff. But this one is at number 2 on the list. Mark Spears' Monsters creating a new horror boom in comics. Fans may have thought that the series got a solid boost thanks to the Halloween season. However, the aftermarket sales of the second issue strongly indicate that this series is not slowing down. Another interesting note to point out is just as like Absolute Batman and Absolute Wonder Woman, the strongest trending cover on this book is cover A. This could be due to initial interest in the second issue, but next week will tell whether fans now prefer to collect regular covers over the pricier variant covers. Either way, the monsters are here to stay with this explosive second issue. What I would recommend is take a look at the FOC when this comes out and look at the ones that interest you most. I haven't read the story. I want to get a copy of issue 1 and then read, both together to see if it is a good read. If it's a read you enjoy, then get one of the covers. They're kind of fun covers. Kind of in the, again, will the long-term value hold? Meh. But kind of in the spirit of was the Forster Fleece, the dog book, where they did all the homages to the different movie posters. So yeah, it's a lot of cool variants, but I think what will hold this is if the story is something that people want to collect. Let's go to number 1 on the list, and this surprised me. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Naruto, cover A by Jorge Jimenez. This came out last week, and it's about a $10 book. A crossover. Listen, I'm a kid of the 80s, so these things are beyond me. This is beyond my fandom. But if we go to number 1, these Ninja Turtles surely do love their crossovers. Aside from the Spider-Verse, it is pretty safe to say that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have seen the most cross-dimensional storylines, going back to Flaming Carrot. In this new crossover, the TMNT team up with the wildly popular Naruto in an action-packed first issue. The book has gotten many positive reviews across both fandoms, even though there were over 40 covers released across open orders, incentives, and retailer incentives. Fans opted for cover A. That's interesting. How many homages? Yeah, we can see there are a lot of homages and limited, and these store exclusives: Davis Ryder, Mellow Fellow, 616 Comics, Fan Expo variants. A lot of different, there's a ton of them. Secret Wars 8 homage. And again, some of these can be fun if it's something you're interested in, but I think you really have to want the storyline on top of everything else. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Naruto goes to the top spot in our list. Let's take a quick look at the runners-up, 11 through 20. Absolute Wonder Woman checks in at number 11. Mark Spears' Monsters second print without the mole at number 12. The Venom number 39, his new costume that was on the list last week. G.I. Joe 311, the Francis Portela 1 in 10, is heating up. Star Wars: The Force Awakens adaptation, the first appearance of Rey. The Captain America 230, which was homaged in the poster, and I agree with John and Richard from Bronson Modern Comics. I hope that the cover artist, who was Ron Wilson, right, has received some compensation from Disney for using his artwork. Yeah, Ron Wilson and Bob Layton did the inks. And that's always been a popular cover. Number 17, Venom Lethal Protector. Number 5, with Xenophage. Secret Wars 8 jumps onto the list. X-Men 251 is still holding strong. Maybe the fact that Deadpool Wolverine just came to streaming. And number 20, Amazing Spider-Man 300, First Venom. And that's going to do it for our top 10 list. I'd like to thank you for coming along this ride with me. Let me know what you think about the books. Did you pick up any of them? Are any of these in your collection? Have you sought any of these out? Let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, you can take a look at a couple of my other videos here. And this is Jim saying until next time, enjoy your comics.